Hey everyone, what's going on? I actually tested positive for coronavirus on last Thursday, so I still have a few days off of work. Figured I'd make some time to make a video here. And maybe I'll talk about the coronavirus at the very end of the video, because of course it was by the numbers. Like the first time I got it was 56 days after my birthday. And if you know Gematria, you know how coronavirus equals 56, and toilet paper equals 56, and Anthony Fauci equals 56, and the list goes on. But in this video, I really want to talk about the death of Donald Trump's ex wife, Ivana Trump, because this death is really linked up to all kinds of things that I have been talking about over the years. And it's also linked to the importance of capital letters within Gematria. And think about the capital insurrection. Think about how that is connected to Donald Trump. Capital insurrection, capital letters. If you go back to 2019, when I really realized that we were supposed to pay attention to the Francis Bacon ciphers that are important to capital letters, it was all connected to the 2019 Tisha B'Av that was very important within the truth community, right? A lot of people were following August 11th, 2019, because it was synced up to the Third Temple symbolism while Donald Trump was the president. Of course, Donald Trump was on a coin in Israel with King Cyrus, and Donald Trump also declared Israel or Jerusalem as the capital of Israel when he was the president. He also was the first president to go to Jerusalem and touch the Western Wall. So the point I'm making is that he's very important to Israel and the Third Temple and Tisha B'Av. And if you've been following me, I've been following a lot with the date August 6th this year, because that's when Tisha B'Av begins. And it's linked up to a whole bunch of things. Maybe it's just symbolism for something I'm supposed to see, but it seems that there's something very important linked up to that day. And I'm bringing all this up because Ivana Trump just so happens to die while Joe Biden takes his trip to Israel. So Joe Biden is in Israel, and then we get the death of Ivana Trump. And what's so interesting about this death is that she just so happened to die 4 months and 24 days after her birthday. And I'll talk about more of this stuff because her birthday is 220. Of course, Donald John Trump in Gematria equals 220, and that's a number important to Pope Francis as well. And think about how when Donald Trump went and touched the Western Wall, 2 days later, he met Pope Francis on the 144th day of the year, And this is a big number with political assassinations and so on. It was his 4th month and 4th day as the president. Of course, if you write out 44, like 4 months and 4 days, it equals 144. If you write out April 4th, like 4-4, it equals 144. Think about Abe Lincoln being shot on the date 14/4, like 144. The first president to die in office was William Henry Harrison, who died on 4/4. JFK got shot or died 144 days after meeting the Pope. And that Pope just so happened to die on the date August 6th, which is interesting because Pope Francis is going to be turning 86 years old at the end of 2022 as well. Well, let's focus on this 424. She dies 4 months and 24 days after her birthday. And what's interesting is the day before, I actually blogged about 7/11, and I was pointing out how Zach always shows this article about the Jewish history of 7/11, right? Think about the Jewish history, think about what I just said about Donald Trump, and so on. And last year, about a year ago, my daughter pointed out to me that in the logo of 7-Eleven, if I can find a good picture here, in the logo of 7-Eleven, all of the letters are capitalized except for the letter N, right? The letter N is lowercase. So once again, I know there's something, I don't know what the significance exactly is of that, but I know that they made that logo with a lowercase n for a reason. And think about, I'm following this pattern with why capital letters are important, right? But I'm making this blog post about 7-Eleven. I'm talking about Zach, talking about the Jewish history. And I then found that 7-Eleven actually is making its first appearance. It's going to be a store in Israel in 2022. They don't have any 7-Elevens there yet. In 2022, they're going to open up the first 7-Eleven store in Israel. And it just made me start thinking about some of these other things that I had learned about Donald Trump. Back in April, Zenith of the Alpha had this video here where he talked about Donald Trump and the number 424. And once again, keep in mind, his wife just died 4 months and 24 days after her birthday while Joe Biden was in Israel. But Donald Trump, if you type out Donald Trump in all capital letters, his name just so happens to equal 424. And this is interesting because when he touched the Western Wall, when he was in Jerusalem, he touched it at exactly 424 Jerusalem time. And further, back in 2018, there was this article about how there was this phone conversation that got recorded and leaked out or whatever. And there was these two Jewish guys, and they were saying that Donald Trump is the Messiah, or he's going to be the Messiah of Ukraine, which is interesting now that we have the whole, Russian invasion of Ukraine and so on, right? And I'll come back to that in a second, but there was these two Jewish guys, and the reason that they said that was because Donald Trump's name in the Hebrew lettering summed to 424, which was the same as one of the phrases for Messiah. The word Messiah, it isn't, but it's something else, something to do with David. I can't remember what it is, but that's why these guys were saying that. They were saying because his name equaled 424 in the Hebrew letters, that his name also equaled the same as something for Messiah. So they were saying that he's the Messiah. They're saying he's like the savior of Ukraine. But what are the odds, And if you look this up, you can find a translation of Donald Trump in the Hebrew lettering, and it just so happens to equal 424. So Donald Trump equals 424 in Hebrew lettering. He touches the Western Wall in Israel at exactly 4:24 p.m., and then his name in all capital letters, if you write it out and use the ciphers that are important to capital letters, his name equals 424, and then his wife just so happens to die 4 months and 24 days after her own birthday. And it was literally the day after I talked about all these 424s with Donald Trump and Joe Biden being in Israel. And with regards to him being the savior of Ukraine, it's interesting because the date July 23rd, this upcoming July 23rd in a few days here, that's actually going to be the 24th of Tammuz, or however you say it, on the Hebrew calendar, which is the 4th month, right? So July 23rd is going to be basically like 424 on the Hebrew calendar. And that's interesting because, like I said, when Donald Trump touched the Western Wall, 2 days later he went and met Pope Francis. And July 23rd just so happens to be 4 months and 24 days before Pope Francis's 86th birthday, his upcoming birthday. This date's also important to some other things that I've been following too. Think about how 723 is Neptunalia. And then go back and think about Ukraine. Remember how, I can't think of what it exactly was, Neptune's return or whatever it was. It was right before the invasion of Ukraine. And I can't think of what it's called right now for whatever reason. But just go look up Neptune and look up like around the date 222, when Joe Biden gave that speech at 222 and he started it or came out at 222 on 222 and so on. But it's important because I've been following this big theme with trains and dreams, and Neptune is actually the ruler of dreams, right? And Neptune is important to dreams, basically. And there's this theme that I've been following linked up to trains and dreams. And if you go back to 2015, we had that Philadelphia train wreck that was linked up to Pope Francis. But then later that year, that summer, we got that shooting at the movie theater that was at the movie Trainwreck, and it was on July 23rd. So there's a big narrative here with how it's linked to what I've been talking about. And even if you go back a couple months, or back into June, I kept having a synchronicity with Mo, and I thought maybe there was something important to Missouri. I kept saying, "Oh, I don't know." I wrote, maybe I should pay attention to Missouri, and this is it was June 27th at 9:26 in the morning. And literally later that day, the big news story was that there was a train wreck in Missouri. And I'm saying, I've been following this train wreck symbolism with a dream theme. There's a whole lot more that goes along with this. It's all connected to Nelly and the Iowa State Fair, which is really important because Nelly is going to be playing at the Iowa State Fair this year. And the 2019 Tisha B'Av narrative that I was following had a lot to do with Slipknot playing at the Iowa State Fair for the first time, which is where Donald Trump in 2015 said that he was Batman while he was in a helicopter. And he did that on Ben Affleck's birthday. And of course, then we just got that story of Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez getting married. So once again, I know that it's important. Ben Affleck was then the next Batman in the movie Batman vs. Superman. And that train wreck symbolism or shooting, it was also linked up to that 2012 Batman movie theater shooting, right? And if you've been following my videos and blog, I've talked all about how Batman is really, really important. And that Batman shooting was really, really important to the date August 6th. Aurora, Colorado equals 86. James Egan Holmes equals 86. Christian Bale equals 86. Bane, the bad guy in that movie, his name equals 86. I went to the movie theater, that midnight showing, the only time I've ever been to a midnight showing. And it was with my two of my friends whose names equal 86. And Skyfall, the James Bond movie, equals 86. And that was in that preview. There was a preview for the James Bond movie Skyfall at that midnight showing. And that the movie Skyfall showed the word Aurora. And it was the Aurora Plaza in China. And then later that night, Aurora, Colorado supposedly got shot up or whatever, right, at the midnight showing. So Skyfall even equaled 86. There's this big, long narrative. But, you know, it's just interesting. It's all about 86 still. And this is even important, too, because in the regular Gematria here, we got Kamala Harris, who equals 86. And if you write her name out in all capital letters, Kamala Harris just so happens to equal 424. And of course, Kamala Harris is really synced up to the stock market crash. Donald Trump was also really linked up to the stock market crash. And I'll come back and start talking about that here in a second. But the train wreck, there was that Missouri train wreck. And the reason that it's so important is because that train wreck was 4 months and 24 days before Joe Biden's birthday. And Joe Biden has been really linked up to the train symbolism. His nickname is even Amtrak Joe because for most of his career he rode the Amtrak and a whole bunch of stuff, right? So, plus his name equals 64, just like how Amtrak equals 64. And this big dream theme that I was following, it had a lot to do with the dates 4-6 and 6-4 because they could both be 6/4, June 4th and April 6th. And back in March, I had this dream where the angel Gabriel came to me and told me the numbers 6 and 4, so I knew to pay attention. And then on April 6th, I had this dream about how I was following a theme with the Mandela effect, and it kept leading back to the rapper Nelly. And then that's when I discovered that Nelly is going to be performing at the Iowa State Fair. And then on the date 6/4, the girl in Nelly's Hot in Here video died. And, you know, it's for a whole nother video, really, to explain all this. But that's part of the reason, you know, I knew Missouri was probably important, too, because Nelly's from Missouri. His friends and family even call him Missouri, Mo or whatever, M-O. And the night before that train wreck, I had synchronicity at the bar. I was doing karaoke, and somebody wanted to sing the song Ghetto Cowboy by the Bone Thugs. But the video I found said the Mo Thugs in harmony, and we were both like, what the world? I always thought it was the Bone Thugs. I don't ever remember Mo Thugs. Maybe, who knows? I don't know how I don't remember Mo Thugs. Apparently it was like a real big popular thing, but I don't. And neither did she. And I was like, must be the Mandela effect. And we laughed, and she knew what I was talking about, which was even weirder, that she even knew what the Mandela effect was. And, then the very next day, we get that train wreck that was synced up to Missouri, but there was also a shooting in South Africa that's linked up to the Mandela effect and a whole lot more. But and 627 was also a date I talked a whole lot about with Nelly because his first album, Country Grammar, I think it was, came out on June 27th, and then that same day we got a train wreck. And even more interesting, I don't get way off topic, but that train wreck was in Minden, Missouri. And this whole dream theme that I've been following, it actually stems back to when I was in high school. I had a dream of my friend's father dying in a car wreck, and the next day he died in a car wreck. And he died on a Highway 191, and I always thought this highway was 191, like the whole way, but apparently, right just where he died, like within the next mile, the highway turns into the highway, and they changed the name to Railroad Highway, which is very weird. But the reason it's interesting is the next town is actually Minden, Iowa. So then we get this train wreck at Minden, Missouri, and it all links back to this dream I had about my friend in high school, or my friend's father dying, and then he died. And even another thing that's important to where he wrecked is if you look out by the railroad tracks that are right there, there's like poles that are sticking up, and it looks like the 9-inch nails symbol. There's always been something important to trains, and then I figured out that it was important to the dream theme. So there's a train and a dream theme, so. And on June 4th this year, believe it or not, the son of that guy's birthday was June 4th, and a whole lot more. But on June 4th, I was at work, and his son, who I haven't seen in 20 years, came into the store and ordered a pizza. And I was like, what are the odds of that? What are the odds that I would see his son on that day? And possibly he was in town for his dad's birthday or whatever, but I have not seen this kid in 20 years. And I just so happened to see him on that day, specific day that I'm watching for. It's just unbelievable. And the day before, my friend Cody actually called me and told me about this dream that he had where he accidentally killed my dog. And I don't even have a dog, but we were actually watching my girlfriend's sister's dog. And the dog in the dream was the exact type of dog that he ran over. And he had no idea that we were even watching her dog. And another person in that dream was the same girl who wanted to sing the Mo Thug song. So, it's just, there's a lot of crazy stuff. It wasn't even just my dream that was linked up to this. It was my friend Cody's, who doesn't even follow my work, really. So it's like, what are the odds he would randomly call me and tell me about a dream that he had where he killed my dog? And the exact same dog that I'm taking care of that doesn't even belong to us. But anyway, I just want to point out, so 7/23 is the day of that train wreck shooting, something that's been very important. So I wonder about that day, considering it's the 24th of the 4th month on the Hebrew calendar. It's also 5 months, or 5 years, 2 months, and 2 days after Donald Trump touched the Western Wall on 5/22 of 2017. That's something interesting too. And the date 4/24/22 just so happened to be the 7/23 on the Hebrew civil calendar. So there's a lot of interesting connections to these two numbers, 7/23 and 4/24. Another reason too is if you go from Pope Francis's birthday to 7/23, it's 218 days. So the other way, to his upcoming birthday, it's 4 months and 24 days, but it's 218 days the other way. And that's really interesting because in Gematria, if you write out just Trump in capital letters, it equals 218. And if you write out Donald, it equals 218. And if you write out Ivana, it equals 218. And this was a really big number when Donald Trump was in office, right? Because there was that presidential alert at 218, if you remember. And, of course, that was on October 3rd, which is 138 days before Donald Trump's birthday. And in the regular lettering, If you write out Donald Trump, his name equals 138. But remember the presidential alert at 218? Further, if you look up Melania Trump, oh, what's her birthday? I can't remember. Hold on. Let's see what it is. I think it's that. I think her birthday is 4/26. Let's look it up really quick. Melania Trump's birthday. 4/26. Yep. So Ivana Trump died 2 months and 18 days after Melania Trump's birthday. Melania Trump's birthday. So 2 months, 18 days. Another 218. And 218 is even more interesting because August 6th, this day I'm talking about, where Tisha B'Av begins this year, the Hebrew day in remembrance of the destruction of the two temples that both fell on the 9th day of the 11th month on the Hebrew civil calendar. Think about the Twin Towers, the 9th month and the 11th day, but they both fell on that day in history. But August 6th this year just so happens to be the 218th day of the year, the day that Tisha B'Av begins, and in these Francis Bacon ciphers, if you write out Twin Towers, it equals 218. If you write out Osama bin Laden, it equals 218. You know, if you go to these other ones and write out the World Trade Center, it equals 218. So that date, 7/23, very interesting day, you know, in regards to how it links up to the Pope. And once again, when Donald Trump went to Jerusalem and touched the Western Wall, 2 days later on 5/24 was when he met Pope Francis. And it's going to get a little deep here, but the very first time that Joe Biden, if you look this up, ever met Pope Francis, it was on the date 3/19 of 2013. So 6 days after Pope Francis became the Pope. But this day 3/19 is really interesting because this is also the same day that Joe Biden fell when he was walking up the stairs of Air Force One that was really big. Joe Biden fell. And think how they just said that Ivana Trump actually didn't die from cardiac arrest. Now they're saying that she died from falling down the stairs. And this comes just like a month after Joe Biden wrecked on his bike at the crosswalk, which I'll talk about here in a second, because it's linked up to the stock market crash and Joe Biden falling on these stairs. But the date 3/19 is also really interesting because that's the day that this Simpsons episode called Bart to the Future came out, right? Notice it's 88 like Donald Trump, or like the word Trump in Gematria. But in this episode of Bart to the Future, they show Lisa Simpson as the first woman president after Donald Trump. And look what she's wearing in this episode. The pearl necklace with the purple blazer or whatever this is. And on Inauguration Day, Kamala Harris just so happened to wear something very, very similar to Lisa Simpson. And this episode came out on 3/19 of the year 2000, which is 152 days after Kamala Harris's birthday. And that's really interesting because in Gematria, Kamala Devi Harris is 152, Joe Biden's 152. And the guy who made this suit, it said he made it in Baton Rouge, and Baton Rouge equals 152. When Donald Trump touched the Western Wall, he did it 152 days before Kamala Harris's birthday. And if you read out Western Wall just so happens to equal 152. And the word stairs, I can't remember, it might be in the other cipher. Stairs is 86, but pretty sure stairs in the Francis Bacon equals 152. Also, in relation to Tisha B'Av in 2018, you remember how Tisha B'Av was really big on the date August 11th, 8/11, and it was linked up to San Francisco, and Kamala Harris has ties back to San Francisco, right? And remember when Kamala Harris was announced as the vice president candidate, it was on the date August 11th, just after the WWE wrestler named Kamala died, and his last name was Harris even. He died on like August 9th. Then 2 days later, they announced that Kamala Harris is going to be the vice president candidate on August 11th. And a whole lot more. That's also Hulk Hogan's birthday that tied back into the WWE and a whole bunch of stuff. But I'm bringing this up because Donald Trump actually touched the Western Wall 811 days before August 11th, 2019. And in relation to San Francisco with all of this, San Francisco is where the Golden Gate Bridge is, but in to the Jews, the Golden Gate actually is where the Messiah returns through. And once again, think about how Donald Trump is linked to the Jewish Messiah and so on. And think about how his name in all capital letters equals 424. But also think about how Kamala Harris's name equals 424. And she's from San Francisco where the Golden Gate is. Her name even equals 524. I never noticed that before. That's the, like, if you do that as a date, that is the day that Donald Trump met with Pope Francis. That's crazy. But once again, Golden Gate, it's linked up to August 11th. Kamala Harris linked up to August 11th. San Francisco, the Messiah. There's definitely something very important to how this all relates. And in relation to that Simpsons episode, well, what's funny too is last night or whatever it was, I think it was 2 nights ago, I blogged about the 424th episode of The Simpsons because there's not a season 4 episode 24. And I looked up the 424th episode and it just so happened to be the Treehouse of Horror. Let me find it here really quick. I don't remember where I put it in here, but we will find it. It's this episode right here, Treehouse of Horror XIX, right? And it's the 424th episode, but this episode really stood out to me because I've blogged about it like multiple times before because this is the episode where they kill Prince. And then Prince's death was linked up to this episode back in 2016. But Homer kills Prince, he kills George Clooney, and he kills Neil Armstrong. And these were all related to Batman. Prince wrote the soundtrack to Batman. George Clooney was Batman. Neil Armstrong, the Batman shooting was on the anniversary of the moon landing, right? Neil Armstrong, first guy to walk on the moon. This is all related to Batman and George Clooney Batman. And then I put that on June 16th. And then the very next day, we get the story about how you can now buy the George Clooney Batman costume. It's going to go on auction. Of course, by the numbers. But it's just like, what are the odds that a George Clooney Batman outfit comes into the news the very next day after I talk about George Clooney and the 424th episode of The Simpsons. But let's go back and look at Ivana Trump. I just want to go back to the first post I made about her death or whatever. And then I'll bring back in this episode of The Simpsons on the same day that Biden fell going up the stairs and then she died falling down the stairs, and why it's important that Joe Biden wrecked his bike on the day that he did. Joe Biden did. It wasn't really big in the news, but Joe Biden did also fall up the stairs again on the date June 8th, which can be written as 8/6 as well, 86, right? But Ivana Trump died at the age of 73. Let me just go through this whole post really quick. I think I've made my point, but talking about the Messiah and all that. Ivana's birthday was 220, right? Another number I've talked about for years with the Jesuits and Pope Francis and so on. Like Donald John Trump's name equals 220. Pope Francis, he is the first Jesuit pope, and his birthday is 2 months and 20 days after the Jesuit anniversary. The Jesuits were also created by the 220th pope, who was Paul III, whose name equals 220 when you use capital letters. Paul III, 220. He was the 220th pope. And, Pope Francis, the first Jesuit pope, and his birthday is 2 months and 20 days after the Jesuit anniversary. Donald John Trump, 220. Vladimir Putin with capital letters. Important if you use like V and a P, 220. 220, this humongous number I've talked about with Donald Trump and Pope Francis. Prince Charles even equals 220. So an interesting birthday that she would have too, but we'll move on from that. I pointed out how if you go from Kamala Harris's birthday to the day that Ivana died, it's a span of 268 days. And in Francis Bacon, if you read out Ivana Trump, we'll just show you here, Ivana Trump equals 268 and also 268. And also a lot of people would say, oh, these are the numbers of the Jesuits, right? But I'm not even going to go on that route here, but, you know, Society of Jesus is 187. But 268 and, you know, twice. And it's 268 days after Kamala's birthday, so once again, you know it's connected to her still. She even got married to Donald Trump on 4/7, which was 200, so she died a span of 268 days before what would have been their wedding anniversary. But Trump equals 47, Ivana's 47, President 47, White House 47, Government 47, Democrat 47, Republican 47, the list goes on, right? The next president will be the 47th president. Trump and Kamala Harris's birthdays are a span of 4 months and 7 days apart. Remember, Trump started Truth Social. The beta version actually came out on Kamala Harris's birthday last year. And then it officially released on the 52nd day of the year. President also equals 52, White House 52, Government 52, Kabbalah 52, Gematria 52. In the Francis Bacon ciphers, the ones with capital letters, where they're important, there's 52 letters because you do the 26 and the 26 capital letters. The word God equals 52. Think about Kabbalah and Gematria and how it links back to God and so on. But doesn't Truth Social even equal 47? I think so anyway. Truth Social 47, right? Came out right before the invasion of Ukraine. Ukraine equals 47. I think I have this as my top video if you want to go look at it. And there's all kinds of other stuff that's connected to this, but what are the odds he's married? He marries her on 4/7. She also died 222 days before her next birthday. If you read out Kamala Harris in the Francis Bacon ciphers, Kamala Harris equals 222. And once again, this number was really big with Ukraine. Remember 222? Ukraine. Ivanka was also, their daughter, Ivana, and Donald's daughter, Ivanka, was also important to Lisa Simpson in the Lisa Simpson episode. Lisa Simpson equals 47. What's Ivanka equal? Where I want to do this safer. Yeah, Ivanka Trump even equals 47, so it's pretty interesting. Pointed this out earlier, but she died 2 months and 18 days after Melania Trump's birthday. Trump equals 218, Donald equals 218, Ivana equals 218, the presidential alert at 218. You know, August 6th, 218th day. If you know, she died at age 73 too. Ivana Marie Trump equals 73. Just the word Ivana equals 73. Trump equals 73. Melania Trump equals 73. She died on Bastille Day, you know, which is important to France, right? France equals 73. Paris, France equals 218. Bastille Day equals 218. And if you go back to the Batman stuff I was talking about with Tisha B'Av, my computer ran out of data here, so hopefully it starts at the right time. But if you go back to the Batman shooting, or the Batman symbolism, Donald Trump said he was Batman on Ben Affleck's birthday, but Ben Affleck also shared a birthday with Napoleon, who was the French emperor, right? And then Ben Affleck was later that year, in 2016, after that, he was in the movie Batman vs. Superman. And the guy who played Superman, his birthday just so happened to be May 5th, which is the day that Napoleon died in history, right? So Ben Affleck, Batman, was born on Napoleon's birthday, and the guy who played Superman was born on the same day Napoleon died in history. Napoleon also died on the same day that the French Revolution began in history. And, you know, August 10th and 11th was Tisha B'Av in 2019. And on August 10th, that was the anniversary of the French monarchy falling. It was also World Lion Day. But remember in 2019, I was talking about how NASCAR was linked up to all that too. And I thought a racer would die on August 31st because of Dale Earnhardt and so on. And then on August 31st, we got the French racer Antoine Hubert actually died. And he was from Lyon, France. Looks like lion. And on Napoleon's birthday that year, Dale Earnhardt Jr. was supposedly in a plane crash. Or, he survived a plane wreck or whatever. It's like, what are the odds? And I just wonder about this year because we just got that death of Bobby East, the guy who was stabbed at the 76 gas station or whatever. I feel like there's some type of connection going on with all this while Biden's in Israel and so on. I feel like it's the same type of narrative here, but maybe I pointed this out already, but Paris, France equals 218 and Bastille Day equals 218. And then so Ivana Trump dies on Bastille Day. France equals 73. She's connected to all these other 73s. In relation to Lisa Simpson, too. So there's that episode where Lisa's the president after Donald Trump, the first woman president. But, let me find it here. I just looked up the lady who voices Lisa Simpson, and her birthday just so happens to be July 3rd, 7-3. So how interesting. And if you look up Lisa Simpson, it says her birthday is May 9th. And there's an episode where they say that she's 2 years and 38 days older than Bart Simpson. And it's disputed a little bit because whatever. But according to the Wikia, like the main Simpsons page or whatever, it says that Bart's birthday is April 1st, which is April Fool's. But if her birthday is May 9th because of that, that's what they're basing this off of. That means he was born in April, so no matter what year it is, Bart and Lisa are actually born 2 years, 1 month, and 8 days apart, like 218. So, just crazy that this lady born on 7-3, Ivana Trump dies at the age of 73, synced up to Melania. She was even born in 1964, the same year as Kamala Harris, 110 days apart, or 3 months and 18 days. If you write out Lisa Marie Simpson, it's 318, and if you write out president, it equals 110. If you go from Lisa Simpson's birthday to Kamala Harris's birthday, it's 164 days, and Kamala Harris and Francis Bacon equals 164, and the lady who voices Lisa Simpson equals 164. So, I really think it's connected up to that episode. Let's go back, though. So we'll see what else I wrote in here. Talked about all that earlier. Right? And they found her falling. She was dead after falling down the stairs. And once again, Joe Biden fell going up the stairs on the same day that the episode as Lisa Simpson being the president came out that's linked to Kamala Harris being the president. And that's also the same day that Joe Biden first ever met Pope Francis. And another interesting thing with this date, 7/23, is that it's a span of 73 days before October 3rd, which is the day that Donald Trump had the presidential alert moved to, right? That presidential alert at 218. So, and also the word train. The word train equals 73, right? So, once again, and this is the anniversary of the train wreck shooting. Talked about all this stuff. What did I write in here? I think I talked about most of that stuff earlier. Talked about that. Donald Trump touched the Western Wall, too, 7 months and 3 days after Kamala Harris's birthday, right? So it's just an interesting age that she would die, plus all these connections. Trump, 73, Ivana, 73, her name, 73, Melania Trump, 73. So let's talk about the stock market crash narrative that I keep talking about. Remember, the presidential alert was on October 3rd, and that's interesting because if you read out stock market crash, it looks a lot like 103, like the date October 3rd. And what's even more interesting is stock market crash. I don't know why I retyped it, but it equals 185, just like how Donald John Trump equals 185. And when Donald Trump touched the Western Wall, he just so happened to do that 185 days after Joe Biden's birthday. And of course, for years I've been talking about Donald Trump and his connection to the stock market and Herbert Hoover. Notice Donald Trump equals 159, just like how Herbert Hoover equals 159. Herbert Hoover's initials are H. H is the 8th letter, a lot like 88. Remember, Trump equals 88. Bart to the Future, that Simpsons episode with Lisa as the president, equals 88. Remember, in 2018, the same year as the presidential alert, we had the Stoneman Douglas shooting, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. And remember, the original St. Valentine's Day Massacre happened in 1929, the same year as the stock market crash, the same year that Vatican City was established. And remember that Super Bowl, too. That was in the 88th anniversary of the stock market crash. And that Super Bowl was held at U.S. Bank Stadium, and which equals 88. It had a lot to do with kneeling during the national anthem as well. Kneel equals 88, Colin Kaepernick 88, and a whole bunch of stuff. But U.S. Bank Stadium. And remember, right after this Super Bowl, the very next day, the stock market dropped a whole bunch of points, and the main story in the media was like market meltdown and so on. I think it dropped like 1,000 points the day after that Super Bowl at U.S. Bank Stadium that was linked up to the stock market crash and, Herbert Hoover and Donald Trump. But back in September, we had Squid Game that came out, right? Squid Game, and I should pull up a picture, but remember Squid Game was all about the number 456, and then they had the giant piggy bank, and think about, money, piggy banks, and so on, but I'll explain this in a second, but it was all about the number 456. The main character's name sums to 456 in Gematria, and you won like 4.56 billion won or million won or whatever it was. It was a lot to do with the number 456. And the pig symbolism is interesting because in 2019, when all that Tisha B'Av stuff was going on, and I talked about Slipknot playing at the Iowa State Fair, and it was important to Donald Trump saying he was Batman at the Iowa State Fair, that was a Chinese pig year. And think about Francis Bacon, the Francis Bacon ciphers with capital letters, bacon, money, bacon, pigs. And Slipknot's only member to die at that time was Paul Gray, who was also known as the Pig. And Iowa is the leading producer of pigs. And the big story in the news on Tisha B'Av that year was about the Hong Kong riots in China. Well, China is also the leading producer of pigs. And the Iowa governor, Terry Branstad, just so happened to step down as the governor of Iowa on the date 5/24/2017, which is the exact same day that Donald Trump met Pope Francis just after touching the Western Wall. And think about it, he leaves to go be the ambassador to China, and he's the Iowa governor. Iowa, there's related to pigs, and it's related to money through Squid Game, right? Bacon and money and pigs, and then, you got the Chinese pig year. It was all related back to Iowa and the stock market. So then, last year, on the anniversary, the 92nd anniversary, the reflection of 29, which is interesting, considering the stock market crash happened in the 10th month on the 29th day of the year 29. Of course, the 10th prime number is 29. Iowa's the 29th state. Iowa has Interstate 29 that goes all the way through it from north to south. Kinnick Stadium was built in 1929. It's a very important thing to Iowa, but think about Wall Street, too, and Donald Trump building the wall, touching the Western Wall, Wall Street. But on this day, last year, so October 29th of 2021, Joe Biden just so happened to meet Pope Francis for the first time ever as the president. So he was the president. He's met him before, but the first time as the president, he met Pope Francis on the same day as the stock market crash. And this was interesting because we also got a story in the news this same day about the Iowa governor, Kim Reynolds, and how she passed something where if you got fired for not being vaccinated, you could still get unemployment, right? But that's very interesting because Kim Reynolds became the Iowa governor the same day that Donald Trump met Pope Francis in 2017, the same day that Terry Branstad had stepped down to be the ambassador to China. And would you believe that Donald Trump met Pope Francis exactly 4 years, 5 months, and 6 days before Joe Biden met Pope Francis on the anniversary of the stock market crash? This number linked up to Squid Game and money and so on. And Squid Game also just so happened to come out exactly 456 days before Pope Francis's upcoming 86th birthday in 2022. And think how Vatican City was established in 1929, the same year as the Valentine's Day Massacre, the same year as the stock market crash. And then further, if you look up Kamala Harris's birthday just so happens to be the exact same day in history that Herbert Hoover had died. Herbert Hoover, October 20th, 1964. Let's look at Herbert Hoover. He died on October 20th, 1964. So Kamala Harris, born the exact same day that the president during the stock market crash from Iowa had died. And, Gerald Ford also gave that he said that thing about how the first woman president or whatever would be after an old guy would die and then there would be a woman president. And he said that in Iowa at like the Herbert Hoover Library or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but it was in Iowa even. And August 10th is also interesting because remember in 2019, this is Herbert Hoover's birthday. Remember, this is the day in 2019 that Slipknot played for the first time ever at the Iowa State Fair on the first day of Tisha B'Av in 2018, which was Herbert Hoover's birthday. So hopefully this all makes sense. And the reason I'm bringing all this up is, there's just this big connection to the stock market. I don't know if it's for cryptocurrency or if it's the actual stock market or what's going on with it, but when Joe Biden fell off his bike back on June 18th, it just so happened to be 456 days after he fell going up the stairs on March 19th. And that's interesting once again, because that's the day the Simpsons episode came out where Kamala Harris, or Lisa Simpson, was the president, but it's really linked up to Kamala Harris. And that's also the day that Joe Biden first ever met Pope Francis. And then he meets him as the president, linked up to the number 456 with Donald Trump in the stock market. It definitely seems that there is something important to the stock market with all of this. Then when you add in the fact that he fell, it's important to stairs, and then Donald Trump's wife dies from falling down the stairs, right? And even more interesting is he wrecked on this crosswalk, right? He wrecked on the crosswalk. And if you go back right around the same time, I was talking about how I had synchronicity with cruise, the word cruise. And I kept having synchronicities with the word cruise. And I pointed out how the word cruise is Spanish for the word cross. And think about the crosswalk. But what's really interesting, and the reason I know that this is important, is because recently I had synchronicity with crosses. On the exact same day that Ivana Trump died, I had a bunch of synchronicity with crosses. And we just got the story in the news about the Stoneman Douglas shooter, Nicholas Cruz, and how his penalty trial is going to begin, right, too. You can look this up. He's in the news right now for his penalty trial beginning. And once again, he's the guy who shot up the Stoneman Douglas, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, the same year as the presidential alert, the same year that was linked up to the stock market crash. So let me explain this cross synchronicity. It was last Wednesday. We had to take my daughter to her real dad's or whatever, and my girlfriend wanted to go to the casino at the Horseshoe. And so whatever, we went to the casino, and as we were leaving, there was this guy, I'm pretty sure he was on meth, or he's like on drugs of some sort. Nice guy. But he needed a phone charger, and he asked me about the gas station called, Sap Brothers, that's right behind the casino. And I was kind of confused what he was talking about. And then he basically asked if we had a phone charger, and my girlfriend told me that we had one in the car, and I thought, man, why'd you say that? But anyway, this guy comes over to our car, and we let him charge his phone for a little bit. And I started talking to him, and he just seemed like a tweaker, he didn't seem like he's going to rob us or anything. And so I was like, dude, I'll just give you a ride to the gas station so you can get a phone charger or whatever. And I drove him there. They didn't have him, so I drove him across the street to Casey's, and they had him. And then he came back out and he asked if he could have a ride. He went to the wrong casino and he wanted to go to Harrah's, not the Horseshoe. And I was like, oh man, whatever. Maybe this guy is gonna rob us. I don't know, but you know, I do stuff like this all the time because I'm an idiot. But I give this guy a ride to the Harrah's casino, and as I'm dropping him off, he's like, hey, he's like, thank you a lot, you know, like, I'm on Facebook. My name's Noah Cross. And I thought, man, that's an interesting name, you know, kind of biblical, right? Noah, the flood, and then Cross. I was like, oh, I'm going to look this guy up on Facebook. So I looked him up on Facebook on the way home. I was like, yeah, that's totally him. That's a real guy. Blah, blah, blah. I was like, I think he's just on drugs, you know? And maybe not. Maybe he's just a strange guy. But, so I get home and I got on Facebook and I noticed that Bobby had sent me a bunch of messages about Rambo talking about the Cardinal Cross. And I thought, what are the odds this guy named Noah Cross is, you know, I give him a ride. And then I get home and I have one message from Bobby and it's about the Cardinal Cross. And I was like, oh, I'm too tired because I started getting coronavirus like after that in the middle of the night. I didn't feel good. I woke up the next day and I felt terrible, but I was like, I'm just going to go to work anyway. I don't know. I never call in. And I got to work and the first thing I saw was this guy. He comes back to the kitchen a lot and bullshits. But his name's Danny. And every day he comes back and gives the girls crap or whatever and talks to me or whatever. But he was wearing a cut-off shirt that day. And I noticed he had 2 cross tattoos on his arm, like big crosses. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Last night I'm having this cross synchronicity and now I come to work and there's these 2 crosses on his arm. And I was looking at him and he's like, what are you looking at? And I'm like, oh, your tattoos, does that stand for like double cross or something? And then he came over and he told me how he showed me closer and it had his dad's name written in one and his brother's name written in one. And then he goes on to tell me how his dad died from a train wreck. So his dad got hit by a train and died. And I was like, what are the odds it's with a train for one, you know? But, you know, just to see these 2 crosses, like the first thing I see when I get to work. And later in the day, this other girl was talking about somebody committing suicide or something. And then another girl that we work with, out of nowhere, said, well, my brother committed suicide. And then she felt bad and whatever. But we were talking a whole bunch of stuff with this. But the girl who brought up the whole suicide thing, later in the day, it's Caitlin, and I talk to her about Gematria sometimes. And I was just like, oh, we just brought up this suicide thing. I'm just going to throw out this cross synchronicity. I'm going to tell her about this cross synchronicity that I've been having and how Danny had the 2 crosses on his arm. And then I said how his dad died by a train. And she was like, I thought you were going to talk about this other thing. And she showed me this cross that was hanging from our shelf up here. Apparently, Dana came to work before I got there, and she felt something in her shorts, and she didn't know what it was, and she pulled it out, and there was a cross necklace inside of her shorts. And I was like, she thought I was going to talk about that, and I was like, dude, no, I had no idea that even happened. I didn't even know that cross was even hanging there, you know? So I was like, what are the odds that some other girl came to work that day and had a cross, like, stuck inside of her shorts, and she didn't realize it until she got to work, and that happened before I got to work. And, you know, I knew there was something important to crosses. I thought about the railroad crossing sign, like the X. This is the St. Andrew's cross, and, you know, just a bunch of stuff. I was like, well, I wonder what that means. I don't get it. And it was interesting because that was on July 14th, and if you write out my name, it equals 147. And if you write out Jesus, it equals 147, like the date. And if you write out the word cross, it equals 147. And I have all this synchronicity, you know. It was after midnight, so it was like in the late hours. So it was on July 14th when all of the cross synchronicities started happening. The same day Ivana Trump had died, right? But I'm bringing all this back up because I have this cross synchronicity, and I talked about that cruise synchronicity right after Joe Biden wrecked on his bike. And remember, cruise means cross in Spanish, And then we just got this story about Nicholas Cruz, the Stoneman Douglas shooter. Let's see if I can just pull up an article. Nicholas Cruz, and how he's going to be sentenced, or his penalty trial opened recently, right? Nicholas Cruz, so his name means cross. He's synced up to the Stoneman Douglas, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, the same year that Vatican City was established, the same year of the stock market crash. And further, Parkland was the high school, right? Or Parkland was the town. And remember, JFK went to the hospital, the Parkland Hospital, and so on. And think about how Joe Biden and JFK are linked up through the Catholic presidents, and you know what I mean? They're the only two Catholic presidents. But I know it's important even more because if you go back to right around the time of the stock market crash, we had a story of Nicholas Cruz pleading guilty to the Stoneman Douglas shooting. October 20th, 2021. So Nicholas Cruz pled guilty on Kamala Harris's birthday just before the stock market crash, right? And it was 8 months and 6 days after Valentine's Day, and I'm talking about the number 86 a whole lot. But it's just like, what are the odds? Nicholas Cruz. And Nicholas Cruz is in, his penalty trial begins right in this time where I'm talking about all these things linked up to the stock market crash. So I know that it is important. These synchronicities are guiding me to understand this narrative. And then you got Joe Biden, whose birthday was 456 days before 2/18. You got the presidential alert that's linked up to the stock market crash at 2/18, right? All these other 2/18s. 7/23 is an interesting date as well, like I said, with the train symbolism, because it's 218 days after Pope Francis's birthday and 4 months and 24 days before his birthday. Also, I've talked about how the Francis Bacon ciphers are important, but last year, when I released my book on 8/6 of 2021, I talked about how I think that this year with Tisha B'Av, we're going to learn the importance to another cipher. And that cipher just so happened to be the Fibonacci cipher. And it's interesting, if you write out stock market crash, it equals 723 in the Fibonacci. So, I don't know. I'm interested to see what happens on July 23rd this year. It's a very interesting day. Neptunalia. Isn't it? Technically, doesn't Leo start on that day too? Leo in astrology. Maybe it doesn't this year. I know a lot of times Leo starts on 7/23. This year it starts on July 22nd, but a lot of times it starts on July 23rd. Leo, the lion, right? Think about World Lion Day. Think about how Donald Trump called Barack Obama the Lion King, or Barack Obama joked that he was the Lion King at the White House Correspondents' Dinner the same time they made fun of Donald Trump possibly being the president. But Barack Obama also equals 456, and he's born during the time of Leo. But that whole narrative went back to that Ethiopian airline crash on 3/10 of 2019. And I'm just wondering about that because this year I had that big train synchronicity. I was following that date for train symbolism. And on that day, 19 miles away from where I live, there was a train wreck and it had a tiger, the word tiger written on it. And it was linked up to August 6th of 2021, the same day I released my book. I had synchronicity with the train with the word tiger on it. But that Ethiopian airline crash was going to Kenya, and then Kenya is where the Lion King is based off of, and it has ties back to Obama, and trying to think, it was linked up to that Lion air crash that happened just before it, and Haile Selassie, who is supposedly the second coming of Jesus Christ to the Rastafari movement. Haile Selassie, I'm losing my train of thought here, but Haile Selassie is known as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. So there's definitely, just like Jesus, right? So there's definitely something going on. And August is a really big month I've been following. There's lots of dates in August that I think might be important. And it's interesting that it's all going to be during the time of Leo, now that I think about it. And there was a ton more with that narrative on 310. I was following that date in 2019 due to Buffy the Vampire Slayer and a whole bunch of stuff, such as how I noticed Buffy the Vampire Slayer equaled 310, and there was some story about her wearing lingerie back in November. I think it was on the same day JFK died in history. And then 3 months and 10 days later, Luke Perry, who's in the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer, had died. And then later that year, we got the death of, can't think of the guy's name, but he's the main vampire in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He died right around the time of the Garlic Festival shooting, right? Think about garlic and vampires. And even Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie, it came out 3 months and 10 days before my birthday and stuff. So, but I was following that date because of Ethiopia and the 10 Commandments and a whole bunch of stuff. Then we got Nipsey Hussle, who died, and Nipsey Hussle has an Ethiopian name and whole bunch of stuff. He's important to marathons, of course. Think about Kenya and Ethiopia and marathons. But we will see. I want to see what else I wrote in here. Donald Trump's on the coin in Israel as well, right? The coin. Yeah, Kamala Harris linked up to the stock market. Donald Trump linked up to the stock market. Think about the episode Bart to the Future as well. The play on Back to the Future. And Back to the Future, you go 88 miles per hour to get to, time travel. And of course, think about how Trump equals 88. And that was also, remember, once again, 2018, at the Super Bowl at U.S. Bank Stadium, and the 88th anniversary of the stock market crash. Which, by the way, Francis Scott Key, the guy who wrote the national anthem, who's linked into that kneeling narrative, he was born in August during the time of Leo as well, August 1st, which is the same day as the Minneapolis bridge collapse in history. And there's too much to explain here, but I knew there was something important to a bridge collapse with that Super Bowl as well. And then on the Ides of March, we got the FIU bridge collapse right after that Super Bowl. And that's where the dream theme stems back to as well, because I had this dream about my dad dying and a whole bunch of stuff that was linked up to that. But just interesting. Nicholas Cruz back in the news. Cruz means cross. I have cross synchronicity the same day Ivana Trump dies. Just after Joe Biden wrecks on his bike on the crosswalk, I have synchronicity with Cruz. I know Derek also connected the Joe Biden wrecking to like the Beatles Abbey Road album with the crosswalk. And I can't remember what I wrote. There was some, but that Paul McCartney is dead conspiracy theory or whatever, it actually began at Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa. So, once again, interesting. Goes back to Iowa, Des Moines. You got Nelly, he's playing at the Iowa State Fair this year. Alanis Morissette is playing on Ben Affleck's birthday, the anniversary of Trump saying he's Batman at the fair. She's playing at the Iowa State Fair. And Alanis Morissette, remember how her drummer was Taylor Hawkins, who just died from Foo Fighters? And the Foo Fighters actually stem back to this big dream theme that I had with involving Corey Taylor of Slipknot in 2015 and Kanye West singing the Queen song Bohemian Rhapsody at Glastonbury when Dave Grohl broke his leg, and then they had Kanye West come and play. Whole lot to that narrative, but it's linked up to Freddy Krueger, the guy who runs the dream world. Like I said, it's for another video, but there's a lot of stuff with a dream and train theme that's going on. That's how I'm figuring out a lot of these things that are going on, buds. Parkland. Let's see what else I wrote here. Donald Trump touched the Western Wall 811 days before 8/11/2019. Then he declared Jerusalem as the capital of Israel 6 months and 14 days later. And then 614 days after he declared after he declared Jerusalem the capital of Israel was August 11th. And then Trump's birthday, 6/14. And remember too, earlier this year on 6/14, we had the news that they're making a real-life Squid Game for Netflix, right? They're doing a real-life Squid Game. And that was on Donald Trump's birthday. So once again, they did that on purpose on Donald Trump's birthday, or that's at least how it fell. It was on Donald Trump's birthday about Squid Game because it has to do with the stock market. And then Joe Biden wrecked on his bike linked up to the stock market in Squid Game in the number 456. And Bart to the Future, also, Bart has a vision when he's at the Indian casino, right? The Indian casino, think about that in regards to money and casino and so on. And there's actually an episode of The Simpsons where Marge gets addicted to gambling. And in that episode, Mr. Burns has like a bunch of like pimples or something on his face. And I remember the pimples say, Freemasons run the country, or whatever on that episode. So, just interesting. It's at the Indian casino. Remember, I made a video about that episode right before Donald Trump won in 2016. And that was when the Indians were in the World Series and the Dakota Access Pipeline became the biggest story ever, right? While the Indians are in the World Series. And all year I had been following a Native American theme linked to the area that I live in. And then the Indians were in the World Series and Donald Trump wins the election, synced up to this episode where Bart goes to the Indian casino. So, we'll leave it at that. I'm like running out of breath. I'm getting really tired again, so. Oh, you know what? One more thing, though. In the Jewish Gematria, let me pull up the Jewish cipher really quick. I'm thinking about Squid Game, and I'm thinking about Korea and so on. North Korea just so happens to equal 424 in the Jewish cipher. And, Donald Trump has a huge thing with North Korea, right? He went and had a meeting with Kim Jong-un, and it was linked up to Harry S. Truman when he was elected. He won the biggest election upset since 1948 when Harry S. Truman was the president. And that's the same year that North Korea was established and a whole bunch of stuff. And Donald Trump equals 48 and Wall equals 48. And Pence is the 48th vice president. And, they came out with the game show called The Wall right after LeBron James, or right after Donald Trump was selected as president. They came out with the game show called The Wall with LeBron James on it. Then on the 48th day of the year, they had a movie called The Wall with Matt Damon. And then they had a movie called The Great Wall that came out right after Donald Trump becomes the president. I mean, come on now. The guy running to build the wall, the guy who touched the Western Wall. Pope Francis at one point told Donald Trump that real Christians don't build walls. It's like, but, oxymoronic. But in relation to this 424 and them Jewish guys saying that Donald Trump was like the savior of Ukraine, it's interesting how North Korea just sided with Russia recently, right? So with the whole Ukraine stuff, and North Korea equals 424. Squid Game, of course, takes place in South Korea. So we'll see. We'll see what goes on with a few of these dates, upcoming dates. Wonder what the news will be like on 7/23 and August 6th. And, the whole month of August I'm interested in. There's just all kinds of dates. Obama's birthday. August 6th is really big. August 10th and 11th because of 2019. Ben Affleck's birthday. August 27th is another interesting day because that's Haile Selassie's the day he died, I believe. And there's just a bunch of interesting days in August. A lot during the time of Leo. That's all. So, I don't know. I'm going to leave it at that. Got a bunch of stuff I want to try to do today, so have a good one. Hopefully it makes sense. Peace.